The champagne glass trembled in Naomi's hand as she watched her husband Trevor laugh at something his mistress had just whispered in his ear. Across the glittering ballroom of the Grandview Hotel, her 8-year-old twins stood frozen near the dessert table, their faces crumpling as Brittany, Trevor's girlfriend, pointed at them while speaking loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. "Are those really your kids, Trevor?" Brittany's voice carried across the marble floors, her red sequin dress catching the light from the crystal chandeliers. "They look like they're dressed for a church bazaar, not a Christmas party. Did their mother make those outfits at home?" Naomi had spent 3 weeks sewing the matching green velvet outfits for Isaiah and Zara. She'd worked late into the night after her shifts at the library, carefully stitching each seam, adding hand-embroidered details because she couldn't afford the designer children's clothes that Trevor's colleagues bought for their kids. She thought they looked beautiful. She thought her children looked like royalty in their rich green velvet. Isaiah's lower lip quivered. Zara grabbed her brother's hand, her own eyes filling with tears. Naomi started moving toward them, her worn blue dress suddenly feeling too tight, too old, too wrong for this place. But Trevor reached the children first. Instead of defending them, instead of protecting his own flesh and blood, he laughed. Actually laughed. "Kids grow so fast, there's no point in spending money on expensive clothes," Trevor said, his arms sliding around Brittany's waist. "Besides, Naomi enjoys her little craft projects. Keeps her busy." The nearby guests shifted uncomfortably. Some looked away. Others whispered behind their hands. Naomi felt every stare like a physical blow as she reached her children and knelt down beside them, ignoring how the action made her old dress strain at the seams. "Let's go get some cookies," she whispered to Isaiah and Zara, trying to keep her voice steady. But before she could stand, Brittany appeared beside them, her expensive perfume overwhelming. "Oh, Naomi, I didn't see you there," Brittany said, though her smirk made it clear she'd seen everything. "You know, if you need some fashion advice, I could recommend my stylist. Though I suppose on a librarian's salary, you probably can't afford her anyway." "Brittany, that's enough," someone said from behind them. Naomi turned to see an older gentleman in an expensive gray suit watching the scene with obvious disapproval. His silver hair and commanding presence suggested importance, but Naomi didn't recognize him. "Oh, Mr. Phillips, I'm just trying to help," Brittany cooed, her tone changing instantly. "You know how generous I am." Mr. Phillips's expression hardened, but he said nothing more. He simply looked at Naomi with something that might have been pity before walking away. Naomi wanted to disappear. She wanted the ground to open up and swallow her whole. "Come on, babies," she murmured to her children, taking each of their hands. But Isaiah pulled away, his small face twisted with anger and hurt. "Why did Daddy laugh at us?" he asked, his voice breaking. "Why didn't he tell her to stop?" Naomi had no answer. She looked across the room at Trevor, who was now posing for photos with Brittany, his hand resting possessively on her hip. He'd brought his mistress to his company Christmas party. He'd introduced her to his colleagues as his girlfriend. And when that same woman mocked his wife and children, he'd done nothing. Worse than nothing. He joined in. "I want to go home," Zara whispered, tears streaming down her round cheeks. "Please, Mama. I want to go home." The drive back to their small apartment felt endless. The twins cried quietly in the back seat, still in their green velvet outfits that Naomi had been so proud of just hours ago. Now, every time she glanced in the rearview mirror and saw those clothes, she felt sick. How had her life become this? 10 years ago, Trevor had been different. Or maybe he'd always been this way and she'd been too young and too in love to see it. They'd met in college. He'd been charming, ambitious, full of dreams about the future. She believed in him, supported him, worked 2 jobs to help him start his business while she was pregnant with the twins. And this was her reward. Public humiliation. A husband who didn't even try to hide his affair anymore. A life so small and constrained that she couldn't even afford to buy her children proper party clothes without going into debt. The apartment was cold when they arrived. Naomi turned up the heat, though she worried about the bill. She helped the twins out of their velvet outfits, tucking them into their shared bed in their tiny bedroom. They fell asleep quickly, exhausted from crying. Naomi stood in the bathroom, staring at her reflection. 34 years old, and she looked older. Tired. Defeated. Her natural hair was pulled back in a simple bun because she couldn't afford regular salon visits. Her blue dress, the nicest thing she owned, had a small stain near the hem that she tried to hide. Even her wedding ring looked cheap and tarnished now, nothing like the upgraded diamond ring Trevor had bought for himself last year. She made a decision then, standing in that cramped bathroom with its peeling paint and dripping faucet. She was leaving. She didn't know how, didn't know where she'd go or how she'd support her children, but she couldn't do this anymore. She couldn't let Isaiah and Zara grow up thinking this was normal, thinking this was love. Naomi began pulling clothes from the closet, stuffing them into garbage bags because they didn't own proper suitcases. The twins didn't have much. Their toys were mostly from thrift stores. Their clothes were hand-me-downs or things Naomi sewed herself. But it would be enough. They'd make it work somehow. Her phone rang at nearly midnight. Naomi almost ignored it, but the screen showed unknown number. Something made her answer. "Is this Naomi Harrison?" A man's voice asked, professional and formal. "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Gregory Patterson. I'm a lawyer with Patterson, Burke and Associates. I'm calling about your father, Robert Harrison." Naomi sank onto the edge of the bed. She hadn't heard her maiden name in years. And her father, she barely remembered him at all. He'd left when she was 5 years old. Her mother never spoke about him except to say he was gone and wasn't coming back. Her mother had died 3 years ago, taking whatever secrets she had about Robert Harrison to her grave. "I don't understand," Naomi said slowly. "I haven't seen my father since I was a child. I understand this is unexpected, Miss Harrison. However, your father passed away 2 weeks ago, and there are urgent matters regarding his estate that require your immediate attention. Could you come to our office tomorrow morning? I realize it's Saturday, but this truly cannot wait. I'm sorry for your loss, but I don't see what this has to do with me. My father abandoned me 30 years ago." "Ms. Harrison," Mr. Patterson's voice softened slightly, "your father never forgot about you. And what he left behind, it's going to change your life. Please come to the office at 9 a.m. The address is 1500 Capitol Boulevard, Suite 3000. This is important. More important than you can possibly imagine." He ended the call before Naomi could respond. She sat there, phone in hand, her half-packed bags scattered around her feet. Her father was dead. A man she didn't know, didn't remember, didn't care about. And yet, something about the lawyer's tone made her pulse quicken. "Change your life," he'd said. How could a dead stranger change anything? She had nothing. She was nothing. Just a librarian with 2 heartbroken children and a failed marriage. But tomorrow morning she would go to that office. She would hear whatever Mr. Patterson had to say. And maybe, just maybe, she'd find a way out of this nightmare her life had become. Naomi looked at her sleeping children, their faces still swollen from crying, and made a silent promise. Whatever came next, she would protect them. She would build them a better life. She would show them that they deserved respect, love, dignity. Even if she had to do it alone. Naomi woke at 6 a.m., her neck stiff from falling asleep on the couch. The half-packed bags were still scattered across the living room floor, a reminder that last night had been real. Trevor hadn't come home. His side of the bed remained untouched, and Naomi felt nothing but relief. The twins were still sleeping. Naomi made herself coffee with shaking hands, her mind replaying the lawyer's phone call over and over. Your father never forgot about you. What did that even mean? If he'd never forgotten, why hadn't he reached out? Why had he let her grow up believing he didn't care? At 7:30, Isaiah and Zara stumbled out of their bedroom, rubbing their eyes. They were quieter than usual, the memory of last night hanging over all of them like a dark cloud. "Morning, my loves," Naomi said, forcing brightness into her voice. "How about pancakes? Is Daddy home?" Zara asked, peering around the corner toward the master bedroom. "No, baby. And I need to talk to you both about that." Naomi knelt down to their level, taking each of their hands. "We're going to be staying somewhere else for a while. Just the 3 of us. Would that be okay?" Isaiah nodded immediately, but Zara's face crumpled. "Because Daddy doesn't love us anymore?" The words hit Naomi like a punch to the chest. "Oh, sweetheart, no. That's not. Daddy loves you both very much. Things are just complicated right now between grown-ups. But you two? You're my whole world. And I'm going to take care of you. I promise." She made them pancakes shaped like hearts, using the last of the pancake mix. While they ate, Naomi called her neighbor Mrs. Chin, who sometimes watched the twins when Naomi worked late. "I have an important appointment this morning," Naomi explained. "Could you watch Isaiah and Zara for a few hours? I'll pay you as soon as I can." "Oh honey, don't worry about payment," Mrs. Chin said warmly. "I heard about last night. Word travels fast in this building. You bring those babies over whenever you need." Naomi wanted to ask what exactly Mrs. Chen had heard, but she didn't have the energy for it. Small apartment buildings were like that, everyone knowing everyone's business. By now, probably half the building knew Trevor had brought his girlfriend to the Christmas party. At 8:30, Naomi dropped the twins with Mrs. Chin, who immediately started setting up board games to distract them. Then Naomi drove downtown in her old sedan, the engine making concerning noises it had been making for months. She couldn't afford to fix it, couldn't afford much of anything really. The law office was in the tallest building downtown, all glass and steel and obvious wealth. Naomi felt underdressed in her simple maroon sweater and black pants, the only professional clothes she owned that weren't covered in patches or stains. The elevator ride to the 30th floor made her stomach flip. The reception area was stunning. Marble floors, leather furniture, original artwork on the walls. A receptionist in a crisp white blouse smiled at her professionally. "Naomi Harrison to see Mr. Patterson," Naomi said, her voice sounding small in the vast space. "Of course, Miss Harrison. He's expecting you. Right this way." The receptionist led her down a hallway lined with mahogany doors. Each one had a brass nameplate, each name sounding more important than the last. They stopped at the corner office, the largest one with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city. Mr. Patterson stood when she entered. He was perhaps 60, with silver hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Two other people were in the room, a younger woman in a green suit and another man with a briefcase. "Miss Harrison, thank you for coming," Mr. Patterson said, shaking her hand. His grip was firm but gentle. "Please sit down. This is my colleague, attorney Rebecca Walsh, and this is Thomas Grant from Grant Financial Services." Naomi sat in the leather chair across from his desk, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I don't understand what this is about. I didn't even know my father was alive until you called." "I know this must be confusing," Mr. Patterson said, sitting back down. "Let me start from the beginning. Your father, Robert Harrison, was a very private man. He built a considerable technology empire over the past 30 years, operating mostly behind the scenes through various holding companies." "A technology empire?" Naomi repeated. That didn't match the vague memories she had of her father at all. "But I thought my mother said he was just a regular guy who left us." "Your father and mother had a complicated relationship," Rebecca Walsh said gently. "From what we understand, your mother asked him to leave and to stay away from you. She wanted a normal life for you, away from the pressures that came with his business success. He honored that request even though it broke his heart." Naomi felt anger stirring in her chest. "So he just abandoned a 5-year-old child? That's supposed to make sense." "He didn't abandon you," Mr. Patterson said firmly. He opened a folder on his desk, pulling out photographs. "He watched over you your entire life, Miss Harrison. He paid for your mother's medical bills when she got sick, though she never knew it was him. He set up a trust fund for your education that your mother refused to access. He attended your high school graduation from the back row. Your college graduation too." He slid the photographs across the desk. Naomi's hands trembled as she picked them up. There she was in her high school cap and gown, smiling with her mother. And in the background, blurred but visible, a man with her same eyes watching from a distance. Why didn't he ever reach out? Naomi whispered, tears stinging her eyes. "He tried 3 months ago," Thomas Grant said quietly. "He hired investigators to find you, discovered you were married with children. He was planning to contact you to explain everything, to finally be part of your life. But then he had a massive heart attack. He died before he could reach out." The room spun. Naomi gripped the arms of the chair, trying to process this information. Her father had been alive, had been watching her, had wanted to know her. And now he was gone and she'd never get the chance to ask him why. Never get the chance to know him at all. "I'm sorry to drop this on you so suddenly," Mr. Patterson said. "But there's more and it can't wait. Your father left you everything, Miss Harrison. His entire estate." "What does that mean?" Naomi asked, though part of her didn't want to know. Part of her wanted to walk out of this office and pretend this conversation never happened. Mr. Patterson exchanged glances with the other two lawyers, then opened another folder. He pulled out a document with so many numbers on it that Naomi's eyes couldn't focus. "Your father's net worth at the time of his death was approximately $4.7 trillion, Mr. Patterson said calmly, as if he was discussing the weather. "You are now the sole heir to his fortune, his companies, his properties, and all associated assets. As of this moment, Miss Harrison, you are one of the wealthiest people in the world." Naomi heard the words, but they didn't make sense. They couldn't make sense. Trillion. That wasn't a real number. That was something from movies or news articles about entire countries. Not something that applied to a librarian from a one-bedroom apartment with a broken heater. She started, then stopped. 4.7 what? Trillion, Rebecca Walsh repeated gently. "I know it's overwhelming. We've been managing your father's affairs for over 20 years, and we'll continue to help you navigate everything. But legally, as of today, you own Harrison Technologies, Harrison Industries, and 47 subsidiary companies operating in 63 countries. You own property on 6 continents. You have investment portfolios that span every major market in the world. This is a mistake, Naomi said, standing up abruptly. This has to be a mistake. I'm nobody. I work at a public library. I can barely afford groceries. This can't be real. It's very real, Thomas Grant said, opening his briefcase and pulling out more documents. These are the account numbers and access codes. We've set up a temporary banking situation for you until you decide how you want to manage everything. As of 1 hour ago, we transferred $100 million into a personal account for your immediate needs. The card is right here. He held out a black credit card with her name embossed on it in gold letters. Naomi Harrison. She stared at it like it might bite her. I can't, she whispered. I don't know anything about running companies or managing money or any of this. You have the wrong person. You're exactly the right person, Mr. Patterson said firmly. Your father chose you. He believed in you. And we're here to help you every step of the way. You don't have to do this alone. Naomi's phone buzzed in her purse. She pulled it out with shaking hands and saw Trevor's name on the screen. He was calling her, probably to yell about her leaving the party early, or to tell her not to come home, or to serve her with divorce papers. She looked at the phone, then at the lawyers, then at the black card sitting on the desk with her name on it. $100 million. For immediate needs. The number was so absurd she almost laughed. She declined Trevor's call and looked up at Mr. Patterson. Tell me everything, she said, her voice stronger now. I want to know everything about my father. About his businesses. About what happens next. Tell me all of it. For the first time since walking into that office, Naomi saw Mr. Patterson smile. That's what your father hoped you'd say. Let's begin. 3 hours later, Naomi's head was spinning with information. She sat at the conference table, surrounded by folders, documents, and legal papers that all somehow belonged to her now. The more she learned, the more unreal it all seemed. Your father started with nothing, Mr. Patterson explained, pulling up a presentation on the large screen at the front of the room. He grew up in poverty, worked 3 jobs to put himself through community college. He had a gift for seeing technological trends before anyone else did. The screen showed a timeline of Robert Harrison's life. At 25, he'd created a small software company. By 30, he'd sold it for millions. By 35, he'd invested that money into emerging tech markets that everyone else thought were too risky. Those investments had paid off spectacularly. He never wanted to be a public figure, Rebecca Walsh added. So he created a network of subsidiary companies, each operating under different names. Harrison Technologies was his flagship, but most people had no idea he owned it. He preferred it that way. Why? Naomi asked. If he was so successful, why hide it? Because wealth like that attracts danger, Thomas Grant said seriously. Your father dealt with kidnapping threats, extortion attempts, people pretending to be long-lost relatives trying to get money. He learned early on that anonymity was safer than fame. Naomi thought about Trevor, about the small life they'd built together, about her job at the library. Her father could have reached out at any time. Could have given her money, could have made her life easier. But he'd stayed away, honoring a promise to her mother, a promise that Naomi was starting to resent. What about my mother? She asked. Did she know? About the money? Mr. Patterson's expression softened. She knew he was successful, but she didn't know the full extent. When they separated, your father offered her a substantial settlement. She refused it. She wanted to make it on her own, wanted to prove she didn't need him. Your father respected that even though it meant watching her struggle. He paid her medical bills, Rebecca added. Set them up through fake insurance claims and charity programs so she never knew it was him. When she died, he made sure you didn't inherit her debts. He took care of everything quietly. Naomi felt tears burning in her eyes again. Her mother had been so proud, so determined to do everything herself. They'd lived paycheck to paycheck Naomi's entire childhood. There had been nights with no dinner, winters with inadequate heat, times when her mother worked herself sick to keep them afloat. And all along, Naomi's father had been there in the shadows, trying to help without being seen. I don't know if I'm angry or grateful, Naomi admitted, wiping her eyes. You can be both, Mr. Patterson said kindly. Your father wasn't perfect. He made choices that hurt people, including you. But he never stopped loving you. These might help you understand. He handed her a leather-bound journal. Your father wrote to you every year on your birthday. He never sent the letters, but he kept them all. They're yours now. Naomi opened the journal with trembling hands. The first entry was dated 29 years ago, her 5th birthday. Her father's handwriting was neat, precise. Dear Naomi, she read aloud. Today you turned 5. I watched you at your birthday party through the window of the community center. You were wearing a yellow dress your mother made. You looked so happy. I wanted to come inside to give you the dollhouse I built for you, but I stayed away like I promised. I hope someday you'll understand. I love you more than you'll ever know. Happy birthday, my little girl. Naomi couldn't read anymore. The words blurred as tears streamed down her face. All those years. All that time. He'd been there, watching, caring, loving from a distance. Take your time, Rebecca said softly, sliding a box of tissues across the table. After a few minutes, Naomi composed herself and looked up at the 3 lawyers who had been managing her father's life for decades. What happens now? What am I supposed to do with all of this? Whatever you want, Thomas said simply. You can sell the companies, keep them, hire people to run them while you learn the business. You can live anywhere in the world, do anything you choose. The money gives you freedom, Miss Harrison. Complete and total freedom. Freedom. Naomi turned the word over in her mind. Just yesterday she'd been trapped in a tiny apartment with a cheating husband and no way out. She'd been sewing clothes for her children because she couldn't afford to buy them. She'd been one unexpected expense away from complete financial ruin. And now, according to these people, she could do anything. Be anyone. I need a place to stay, she said suddenly. Today. Right now. Somewhere safe, somewhere nice. Somewhere my children will be comfortable. Already arranged, Mr. Patterson said, handing her a key card. The penthouse suite at the Riverside Grand Hotel. It's been prepared for you and your children. Security is in place and the hotel staff has been briefed. No one will bother you there unless you want them to. Naomi stared at the key card. The Riverside Grand was the nicest hotel in the city. Trevor had taken her there once for dinner, years ago when he was trying to impress her. They'd looked at the menu and left because they couldn't afford anything on it. What about my husband? She asked, then corrected herself. My soon-to-be ex-husband. What do I do about him? The 3 lawyers exchanged looks. That's your decision, Rebecca said carefully. But if I may offer some advice? Don't tell him. Not yet. Get yourself settled, get your children stable, understand your new situation. Then decide how you want to handle your marriage. He'll look for me, Naomi said. When he realizes we're gone. Let him look, Thomas said with a slight smile. Miss Harrison, you now have resources that most people can't even comprehend. If you want to disappear from your old life completely, we can make that happen. New identities if necessary, though I don't think you'll need to go that far. Your husband has no legal claim to any of this. You inherited it after your marriage and we'll make sure it stays separate property. I don't want him to have any of it, Naomi said firmly. Not a penny. He chose another woman. He humiliated our children. He gets nothing. Understood, Mr. Patterson said, making notes. We'll begin divorce proceedings whenever you're ready. Given your new financial position, I'd recommend we handle it aggressively. Protect your assets, establish custody, make sure everything is ironclad. Naomi nodded, feeling a strange sense of calm settling over her. For the first time in 10 years she had power. Real power. The kind that couldn't be taken away or diminished or mocked. There's one more thing, Rebecca said, pulling out a folder. Your father's estate includes several properties in the city. One of them is a mansion in the Oakwood Heights neighborhood. 15 bedrooms, 10 bathrooms, pool, tennis courts, 5 acres of land. It's been maintained but unoccupied for years. Your father bought it hoping someday you and your family would live there. She showed Naomi photographs of the most beautiful house she'd ever seen. It looked like something from a magazine with columns and gardens and rooms bigger than her entire current apartment. That's mine? Naomi whispered. All yours. We can have it prepared for you to move in within a week if you'd like. Naomi looked at the photos, at the key card to the hotel, at the black credit card, at the journal full of letters from a father she never knew. Her entire life had changed in a single morning. Everything she thought she knew about herself, about her family, about her place in the world, it was all different now. I need to pick up my children, she said, standing up. Her legs felt shaky, but her voice was strong. They're waiting for me. And then I need to go back to my apartment one more time. I need to get our things and leave before Trevor comes home. We can send people to pack for you, Thomas offered. You don't have to go back there at all. No, Naomi said. I need to do it myself. I need to walk out of that place knowing I'm never coming back. I need that closure. Mr. Patterson stood and extended his hand. Your father would be proud of you, Miss Harrison. The way you're handling this, the strength you're showing, that's exactly who he hoped you'd become. Naomi shook his hand, then Rebecca's, then Thomas's. She gathered the journals, the documents, the key cards, and the credit card. All the proof that her life was no longer what it had been. I'll call you tomorrow, she said. After I've had time to think. After my children are settled. Then we'll figure out everything else. We'll be here whenever you need us, Mr. Patterson assured her. Day or night. You're not alone in this. As Naomi rode the elevator back down to the ground floor, she caught her reflection in the mirrored walls. She looked the same as when she'd arrived. Same maroon sweater, same tired eyes, same uncertain expression. But inside, everything had shifted. She wasn't poor Naomi anymore, the woman with the cheating husband and the hand-sewn clothes and the broken-down car. She was Naomi Harrison, daughter of Robert Harrison, heir to a fortune so vast she couldn't even comprehend it yet. And Trevor, Brittany, everyone who had ever looked down on her or pitted her or dismissed her, they had no idea what was coming. Naomi smiled as the elevator doors opened. For the first time in longer than she could remember, she felt something that almost resembled hope. Naomi's hands shook as she drove back to Mrs. Chen's apartment. The black credit card sat in her purse like it weighed 1,000 pounds. $100 million. For immediate needs. She still couldn't wrap her mind around it. Mrs. Chen opened the door with a warm smile. Naomi, honey, come in. The twins are in the living room playing cards. Isaiah and Zara looked up when she entered, their faces brightening. They ran to her, and Naomi knelt down to hug them both tightly. These were her reasons for everything. These two beautiful children who deserved so much better than what they'd been given. Thank you so much for watching them, Naomi said to Mrs. Chen. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Anytime, dear. Is everything okay? You look different somehow. Naomi laughed, a slightly hysterical sound that she couldn't quite control. Everything is very different, Mrs. Chen. Very, very different. But I think it's going to be okay. She drove the twins back to their apartment, trying to figure out how to explain what was happening without overwhelming them. They were 8 years old. How did you tell 8-year-olds that their grandfather they'd never met had left them a fortune? The apartment looked smaller and shabbier than ever when they walked in. The walls needed painting. The carpet was stained. The furniture was mismatched and worn. This place had been home for 8 years, but Naomi realized she'd never actually liked it. She just told herself it was enough because she couldn't imagine anything better. Babies, sit down, she said, settling on the couch with Isaiah on one side and Zara on the other. Mama needs to tell you something important. Are we in trouble? Zara asked worriedly. No, sweetheart, not at all. Do you remember how Grandma Jean used to tell you stories about your Grandpa Robert? The man who was Mama's daddy? Both twins nodded. Naomi's mother had told them sanitized versions of the story, leaving out the pain and abandonment but painting Robert as someone who had loved them from far away. Well, Grandpa Robert died a few weeks ago. And it turns out he was a very successful businessman. He left us some money to help us have a better life. How much money? Isaiah asked, his 8-year-old mind probably imagining enough for new video games or maybe a bike. A lot of money, Naomi said carefully. Enough that Mama doesn't have to work at the library anymore unless she wants to. Enough that we can move to a much nicer house. Enough that you can go to a better school and have new clothes and toys and anything you need. Are we rich? Zara asked, her eyes wide. Naomi thought about how to answer that. Yes, baby. We're rich. Very rich. And that means our lives are going to change in some big ways. But the most important thing, the thing that never changes, is that we're a family. The three of us. That's what matters most. Isaiah frowned, processing this information. What about Daddy? The question Naomi had been dreading. Daddy and I are going to live in different places now. You'll still see him sometimes, but things are going to be different with him too. Because he was mean at the party? Zara asked softly. Partially because of that, yes. But also because Mama and Daddy aren't happy together anymore. Sometimes grown-ups need to live separately so everyone can be happier. Does that make sense? Neither of them looked happy about it, but they both nodded. Naomi pulled them close, breathing in the scent of their hair, feeling their small bodies pressed against hers. Right now we're going to pack some bags, she said. We're going to stay at a really fancy hotel for a little while. It has a pool and room service and everything. Would you like that? Their faces lit up, and Naomi felt some of the tension ease from her chest. Children were resilient. They would adapt. They would heal. She would make sure of it. They spent the next 2 hours packing. Naomi moved quickly, efficiently, taking only what they needed immediately. Clothes, toiletries, the twins' favorite toys. She left most of the furniture, the dishes, all the stuff that had made up their life here. She didn't want any of it. It all reminded her of Trevor, of being small and helpless and trapped. She was loading the last bag into her car when Trevor's Mercedes pulled into the parking lot. Naomi's heart sank. She'd hoped to be gone before he came home. Trevor got out of his car, his expensive suit rumpled, his eyes bloodshot. He'd obviously been drinking. "Where the hell are you going?" he demanded, stalking toward her. "Away," Naomi said calmly, though her pulse was racing. "We're leaving." "You can't just leave. This is insane. You're overreacting about last night." "Overreacting?" Naomi repeated, her voice cold. "You brought your mistress to your company party. You let her humiliate our children. You laughed at them, Trevor. At your own kids. Brittany was just joking around. Don't be so sensitive." "I'm done," Naomi said flatly. "I'm done with this marriage. I'm done with you. My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce." Trevor's face flushed red with anger. "Your lawyer? You can't afford a lawyer. You can barely afford to feed those kids. You need me, Naomi. Without me, you're nothing." Naomi looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing. No anger, no pain, no regret. Just emptiness. This man had been her whole world once, and now he was just an obstacle to remove from her life. "I think you'll find that I can afford a very good lawyer," she said quietly. "Goodbye, Trevor." She got into her car before he could respond. In the back seat, Isaiah and Zara watched their father with wide eyes as Naomi started the engine. Trevor was still yelling something, but Naomi couldn't hear him over the sound of the motor. She drove away without looking back. The Riverside Grand Hotel was everything she remembered and more. The valet took her keys, looking slightly confused by her beat-up sedan but too professional to comment. A doorman opened the door. The lobby was marble and gold, with fresh flowers everywhere and a fountain in the center. "Welcome to the Riverside Grand," the woman at the front desk said with a perfect smile. "Checking in?" "Yes. Naomi Harrison. I believe a suite has been reserved." The woman's eyes widened slightly. "Of course, Miss Harrison. The penthouse is ready for you. Let me get someone to help with your bags." Within minutes, they were in a private elevator heading to the top floor. The twins pressed their noses against the glass, watching the lobby shrink below them. When the doors opened, Naomi gasped. The penthouse wasn't a room. It was an entire floor. Living room, dining room, full kitchen, 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and a terrace with a view of the entire city. The furniture was elegant, the colors were rich blues and greens, and everything was clean and new and beautiful. "Mama, is this really ours?" Zara whispered, spinning in a circle to take it all in. "For now, yes," Naomi said, her voice choked with emotion. "Do you like it?" Both twins nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. They explored every room, exclaiming over the huge bathtubs, the television screens, the beds with their fluffy comforters. Naomi followed them, still not quite believing this was real. There was a knock on the door. Naomi answered it to find a man in a black suit holding a folder. "Miss Harrison, I'm Carl Rodriguez, head of security. Mr. Patterson asked me to introduce myself and go over the security protocols for the penthouse." "Security protocols?" Naomi repeated. "Yes, ma'am. Given your situation, Mr. Patterson felt it was prudent to have someone monitoring your safety. I have a team that will be stationed on this floor and in the lobby. You'll have a personal bodyguard whenever you leave the hotel. Nothing intrusive, but we want to make sure you and your children are protected." Naomi hadn't even thought about security. But of course, if she was worth trillions of dollars now, she'd need protection. The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. "Thank you," she said. "I appreciate that." After Carl left, Naomi ordered room service for dinner. She didn't look at the prices, just ordered whatever the twins wanted. Chicken fingers for Isaiah, pasta for Zara, and a steak for herself that cost more than she used to spend on groceries for a week. They ate on the terrace as the sun set over the city. The twins laughed and chattered, already bouncing back from the trauma of the night before. Children were amazing that way. Give them safety and love and they could forgive almost anything. After dinner, Naomi tucked them into one of the bedrooms together. They fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted from the emotional roller coaster of the past 24 hours. Naomi went to her own bedroom and opened the journal her father had left her. She spent the next 3 hours reading his letters, one for each of her birthdays. They chronicled her entire life from his perspective. Her first day of school. Her high school plays. Her college graduation. Her wedding to Trevor, which he'd attended from a distance. worried the whole time that she was making a mistake. "I see how he looks at you," her father had written on her wedding day. "There's ambition there, but I'm not sure there's love. I hope I'm wrong. I hope he makes you happy. You deserve all the happiness in the world, my darling girl." He hadn't been wrong. Trevor had never really loved her. He'd loved what she could do for him, the way she'd supported his dreams and sacrificed her own. But love? Real love? That had never been there. Naomi closed the journal and looked out at the city lights sparkling below. Somewhere out there, Trevor was probably drunk and angry, ranting to Brittany about his ungrateful wife. Somewhere out there, her old life was waiting, small and sad and suffocating. But she wasn't going back to it. She was moving forward. And tomorrow she would start building a new life. A better life. The life her father had always wanted for her. Naomi fell asleep in a bed softer than clouds, in a room fit for royalty, with her children safe down the hall and a future full of possibilities stretching out before her. For the first time in years she slept without nightmares. The next morning, Naomi woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. For a moment she didn't remember where she was. Then reality crashed back and she sat up, looking around the luxurious bedroom with fresh wonder. It was real. All of it was real. The twins were already awake, watching cartoons in the living room. Room service had delivered breakfast without her even ordering it. Fresh fruit, pastries, eggs, bacon, juice. A note explained that breakfast would be delivered every morning unless she requested otherwise. "Good morning, my loves," Naomi said, kissing the tops of their heads. "Did you sleep well?" "This bed is like sleeping on a cloud," Isaiah said seriously. "I never want to sleep anywhere else." "Can we go swimming today?" Zara asked hopefully. The lady at the desk said there's a pool just for people staying in the penthouse. "We'll see," Naomi promised. "First, Mama has some things to take care of." After breakfast, she called Mr. Patterson's office. He answered immediately as if he'd been waiting for her call. "Miss Harrison, how are you settling in?" "It's overwhelming," Naomi admitted. "But good. Thank you for arranging everything. I need to talk to you about next steps. Schools for the children, somewhere permanent to live, all of it. I've taken the liberty of preparing some options. Could you come to the office this afternoon? I can have a car sent for you." "A car?" "A driver, Miss Harrison. You'll need transportation and your current vehicle is, well, it's not appropriate for your new situation." Naomi looked out the window at the parking lot, where her beat-up sedan sat among Mercedes and Teslas like a rusty old penny. "I suppose you're right. Yes, send a car. 2 o'clock. Perfect. And Miss Harrison? Bring the children. I have someone I'd like them to meet." That afternoon, a sleek black SUV pulled up to the hotel. The driver, a kind-faced woman named Sharon, opened the door for them. "Good afternoon, Miss Harrison. I'll be your primary driver from now on." The twins were delighted with the car, which had screens in the back seats and snacks in a console. Naomi sat back, watching the city go by, trying to adjust to the fact that this was her life now. She had a driver. She had security. She had more money than she could spend in 100 lifetimes. At the law office, Mr. Patterson greeted them warmly. "Isaiah, Zara, it's wonderful to meet you. Your grandfather talked about you both often." "He did?" Isaiah asked, surprised. "Oh yes, he was very proud of you. Come with me, I have something to show you." He led them to a room Naomi hadn't seen before. Inside were toys, books, art supplies, and a young woman with a friendly smile. "This is Monica. She's going to play with you while your mother and I talk about some grown-up things. Is that okay?" The twins looked at Naomi, who nodded. "It's fine, babies. I'll be right down the hall." Back in Mr. Patterson's office, he spread out brochures and documents across the conference table. "I've researched the top private schools in the city. Oakwood Academy is the best academically and has spots available. They can start after the winter break." Naomi looked at the brochure. The campus was beautiful, with modern facilities and happy-looking children. The tuition was more than she used to make in a year. "This looks perfect." "Good. Now housing. The mansion in Oakwood Heights is ready for you to tour. I've also prepared information on several other properties if you'd prefer something different. But I think you'll love this one. Your father designed parts of it with you in mind." They spent 2 hours going over details. Bank accounts, investment strategies, hiring staff for the house, establishing security protocols. Naomi's head spun with information, but she absorbed as much as she could. "What about Trevor?" she asked finally. "Has he tried to contact you?" "3 times this morning," Mr. Patterson said dryly. "He wants to know where you are. I told him we don't represent him and ended the calls." Has he contacted you directly? 27 calls and 43 text messages, Naomi said, showing him her phone. I haven't answered any of them. Good. Keep it that way. We'll file for divorce next week. I'll handle everything. You just focus on settling in and taking care of your children. That evening they toured the mansion. Naomi drove through the iron gates and up the long driveway, her breath catching at the sight of the house. It was even more beautiful in person than in photos. White stone, massive columns, gardens that seemed to go on forever. A woman waited at the front door, middle-aged and professional in a green suit. Ms. Harrison, I'm Patricia Moore, the estate manager. Welcome home. The tour took an hour. 15 bedrooms, each one decorated differently. A library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. A home theater. A gym. An indoor pool and an outdoor pool. A tennis court. A playground that made the twins squeal with joy. Your father had the playground built 5 years ago, Patricia explained. He hoped someday his grandchildren would use it. Naomi felt tears prick her eyes again. All of this planning and hoping and dreaming, for a daughter he never got to know and grandchildren he never met. The waste of it, the tragedy of it felt overwhelming. Can we really live here? Zara asked, her eyes huge. Yes, baby. This is our new home. They moved in 3 days later. Patricia had hired a full staff, a chef, housekeepers, groundskeepers, security personnel. Naomi felt strange giving people orders, but Patricia assured her she'd get used to it. Your father employed hundreds of people, Patricia said. He believed in paying well and treating everyone with respect. That's all these people expect from you. The twins adjusted quickly. Isaiah claimed a bedroom with blue walls and a view of the tennis court. Zara chose one painted green with a window seat overlooking the gardens. Naomi took the master suite, a space so large and luxurious it felt like a separate apartment. On their first night in the house, they had dinner in the formal dining room. The chef had prepared their favorite foods, and they ate off china plates with actual silverware. Afterward, Naomi tucked the twins into their new beds, marveling at how much their lives had changed in less than a week. Mama, is this really forever? Isaiah asked sleepily. Or is it like a dream that will end? It's forever, sweet boy. This is our life now. We're safe, we're together, and nobody can hurt us anymore. He fell asleep with a smile on his face. Naomi stood in his doorway for a long moment, watching him breathe, grateful beyond measure for this second chance. Over the next week, Naomi threw herself into learning about her father's businesses. She met with executives from Harrison Technologies, sat in on board meetings, read financial reports until her eyes crossed. She hired tutors to teach her what she didn't know. Business management, investment strategies, corporate law. The executives were surprised by her intelligence and her determination. She wasn't content to just sit back and let others run things. She wanted to understand every aspect of the empire she'd inherited. Your father would be impressed, Thomas Grant told her after a particularly intense meeting. You have his mind for business. That's not something that can be taught. Naomi also started making changes. She increased wages for all lower-level employees across her companies. She established scholarship programs and charitable foundations. She used her wealth not just for her own comfort but to help others who were struggling the way she once had. The twins thrived. They made friends at their new school, joined clubs, discovered talents they'd never had the chance to explore before. Isaiah took up piano. Zara started ballet. They were happy, truly happy, in a way they'd never been in that cramped apartment with a father who barely noticed them. Trevor kept calling. Naomi kept ignoring him. Mr. Patterson filed divorce papers, citing irreconcilable differences and Trevor's infidelity. Trevor's lawyer responded with demands for spousal support and half the marital assets. He has no idea, does he? Naomi asked Mr. Patterson. None whatsoever. He thinks you're hiding out with family somewhere, living off credit cards. He has no clue about the inheritance. Good. Let's keep it that way for now. At night, when the twins were asleep, Naomi read more of her father's journals. She learned about his struggles, his regrets, his hopes. He'd written extensively about his decision to stay away from her, questioning it constantly but honoring the promise he'd made to her mother. I watch you grow into an amazing woman, he'd written on her 30th birthday. Strong, kind, compassionate. You got none of that from me. That's all your mother's influence. I'm proud of you beyond words, even though I have no right to that pride. You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. But I love you, Naomi. I've loved you every single day of your life. Naomi wept reading those words. She wept for the father she'd never known, for the relationship they'd never had, for all the lost time that could never be recovered. But she also felt grateful. Grateful that he'd loved her, that he'd watched over her, that he'd left her the tools to build a better life. 1 month after the Christmas party, Naomi stood in her new home office, looking out at the gardens where her children played. She was wearing a maroon business suit that cost more than her old car. Her natural hair was styled beautifully by a professional. Her nails were manicured, her skin glowing from the spa treatments Patricia insisted she needed. She looked successful. She looked powerful. She looked like someone who belonged in this world of wealth and influence. And for the first time in her life, Naomi felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. 3 months after inheriting her father's fortune, Naomi barely recognized her old life. She stood in the boardroom of Harrison Technologies, presenting a quarterly report to executives who had decades more experience than she did. Her voice was confident, her presentation polished. She'd worked for weeks preparing this, learning every detail of the company's operations. Our investments in renewable energy are performing beyond projections, she said, pulling up a chart on the screen. I propose we expand this division and reduce our holdings in fossil fuels by another 20% over the next fiscal year. Some of the older board members exchanged glances. Richard Coleman, a man in his 60s who'd worked with her father for years, spoke up. That's an aggressive timeline, Ms. Harrison. Your father preferred a more cautious approach. My father built this empire by taking calculated risks, Naomi countered. The market is shifting towards sustainable energy faster than anyone predicted. If we don't adapt quickly, we'll lose our competitive edge. She clicked to another slide showing competitor analysis and market trends. She'd learned fast over the past months, absorbing information like a sponge. Every evening after the twins went to bed, she studied business reports, attended virtual seminars, consulted with experts. I'm impressed, Richard admitted. You've done your homework. I support the proposal. The rest of the board agreed. Naomi felt a surge of satisfaction as the meeting ended. She was doing this. She was actually running a multi-billion-dollar company and doing it well. Her assistant, Monica, a sharp young woman she'd hired last month, was waiting outside the boardroom. Your next meeting is in 30 minutes. You wanted to review the new candidates for the CFO position. Yes, let's go over them now. Back in her corner office, 3 floors above the one her father had used, Naomi reviewed resumes. She'd fired the previous CFO after discovering he'd been cooking the books to hide his own embezzlement. The betrayal had stung, but it had also taught her an important lesson. Trust was earned, not given freely. Her phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. The twins' school play is at 6 p.m. Would you like me to hold dinner until 7:30? Naomi smiled. No matter how busy she got, family came first. She'd promised herself that. Yes, please. And make sure to record the play. I want to watch it again later. Isaiah and Zara had adapted to their new life beautifully. Isaiah was excelling in piano, already performing at a level that amazed his teachers. Zara had joined the school's ballet program and talked constantly about being a professional dancer someday. They had friends, hobbies, confidence. More importantly, they'd stopped asking about Trevor. The hurt from the Christmas party had faded, replaced by the security and love of their new life. They understood now that their father's absence was his loss, not theirs. That evening, Naomi sat in the front row of the school auditorium, watching her children perform in their class play. Isaiah had a speaking role, and he delivered his lines perfectly. Zara danced across the stage with grace and joy. Naomi's heart felt so full it might burst. After the show, she took them to their favorite ice cream place, a small shop near the mansion that made everything fresh. The owner, a woman named Betty, always gave the twins extra toppings and chatted with Naomi like an old friend. You 3 look happy, Betty observed, handing over 3 sundaes piled high with whipped cream and cherries. We are, Naomi said honestly. We really, really are. At home, Naomi tucked the twins into bed and then retreated to her office. She had paperwork to review for the divorce proceedings. Mr. Patterson had called earlier to say Trevor's lawyer was becoming more aggressive, demanding meetings and threatening to drag things out in court. Let him try, Naomi had said. I have better lawyers and more patience than he does. The truth was, Trevor still had no idea about her inheritance. As far as he knew, she was living off savings and maybe help from friends. He had no clue she owned the building where his office was located. He had no clue that 3 of his biggest clients had recently been acquired by subsidiaries of Harrison Technologies. Naomi wasn't going out of her way to hurt him. She didn't need to. His own actions were destroying him. Word had spread about the Christmas party, about how he'd treated his wife and children. Several of his colleagues had distanced themselves from him. His business was struggling not because Naomi was sabotaging it, but because Trevor had built it on relationships that were crumbling now that people saw his true character. A knock on her office door interrupted her thoughts. Patricia entered with a folder. "These just arrived by courier. From Mr. Patterson's office." Naomi opened the folder and smiled. Divorce papers, finalized and ready for her signature. She'd agreed to generous child support, even though she didn't need it, because she wanted the divorce to go through quickly and cleanly. She'd agreed to split the minimal marital assets, mostly just Trevor's car and some furniture from their old apartment. In return, she kept her inheritance completely separate. Trevor would never know about the money. He'd never have any claim to it. He would walk away from this marriage with almost nothing, which was exactly what he deserved. She signed the papers and called Mr. Patterson. "They're ready. How soon can this be final? If Trevor's lawyer agrees to the terms, which they will because it's more than fair, we could have a judge sign off within 2 weeks." "Good. I want this finished." The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity. Naomi launched a new initiative at Harrison Technologies to provide paid parental leave and childcare benefits for all employees. She started a foundation to support single mothers, remembering her own mother's struggles. She invested in a women's business accelerator program. The media started noticing her. Articles appeared about the mysterious new CEO of Harrison Technologies, the woman who'd appeared seemingly out of nowhere and was already making waves. Naomi gave a few carefully managed interviews, talking about her father's legacy and her plans for the company's future. She never mentioned Trevor or her previous life. That was behind her now, a closed chapter. One afternoon, Naomi was leaving a business lunch downtown when she saw a familiar face. Brittany, looking less polished than she had at the Christmas party. Her designer clothes were still expensive, but there was something defeated about her posture. Their eyes met. Brittany's widened in recognition and surprise. Naomi simply nodded politely and continued to her car, where Sharon waited. She didn't owe Brittany a conversation or an explanation. "Everything all right, Ms. Harrison?" Sharon asked, noticing Naomi's expression. "Everything's perfect," Naomi said. And it was true. That evening, Naomi hosted a dinner party at the mansion. She'd started building a social circle, meeting other business owners and community leaders. The guests included Richard Coleman from the board, a local congresswoman, the dean of the university's business school, and several other influential people. Patricia had outdone herself. The dining room looked spectacular, with fresh flowers and elegant table settings. The chef had prepared a 5-course meal. Naomi wore a stunning red dress and jewelry that had belonged to her father's mother, her grandmother she'd never met. She moved through the party with confidence, making conversation, building relationships, establishing herself as someone to be taken seriously. The congresswoman in particular seemed impressed by Naomi's foundation work. "We need more people like you in the business community," she said. "People who remember what it's like to struggle and use their resources to help others." "I'll never forget where I came from," Naomi said simply. "That's what drives everything I do." After the guests left, Naomi kicked off her heels and walked through the quiet house. The twins were asleep upstairs. The staff had cleaned up and gone home. She stood in the library, surrounded by books, and thought about the journey that had brought her here. For months ago, she'd been broken, humiliated, trapped in a life that was slowly suffocating her. Now she was free, powerful, building something meaningful with the resources she'd been given. She picked up her father's journal and read the last entry he'd written, just weeks before his death. "Naomi, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I'm sorry I never got to tell you in person how proud I am of you. You're strong, capable, and kind. Everything I built for you. Not because I thought you needed saving, but because I wanted to give you options. I wanted you to have the freedom to choose your own path, to build your own life without constraints. Use what I've left you however you see fit. Just promise me you'll be happy. Promise me you'll live fully and love deeply and never let anyone make you feel small again. I love you, my daughter. I always have. I always will. Your father, Robert." Naomi closed the journal, tears streaming down her face. "I promise, Dad," she whispered to the empty room. "I promise I'll make you proud." And she meant it. Trevor stared at the eviction notice in his hand, reading it for the third time as if the words might change. 60 days to vacate the premises. His office lease had been terminated. The building's new ownership had decided not to renew any of the current tenant contracts. "This is insane," he muttered, crushing the paper in his fist. "They can't just kick us out like this." His assistant, one of only 3 employees he had left, cleared her throat nervously from the doorway. "Mr. Anderson, I need to talk to you about something." "Not now, Jennifer. I'm dealing with a crisis here." "That's what I need to talk about. I'm giving my 2 weeks' notice. I got an offer from another company." Trevor's head snapped up. "What? You can't leave. I need you here." "I'm sorry, but the salary they're offering is 40% more than what you pay me. And honestly, Mr. Anderson, this company is sinking. Everyone can see it." She left before he could argue. Trevor slumped in his chair, looking around his once thriving office. 6 months ago, he'd had 15 employees and clients lining up to work with him. Now he could barely keep the lights on. It had started small. A client canceling a contract, citing budget concerns. Another client choosing a competitor. Then his biggest account, the one that brought in 30% of his revenue, had suddenly terminated their relationship with no explanation beyond taking business in a different direction. Trevor had tried to fight back to figure out what was happening. But every door he knocked on seemed to close in his face. Business contacts who used to return his calls ignored him. Networking events he attended left him isolated, with people making polite excuses to avoid conversation. And Brittany. She'd lasted exactly 3 weeks after his money troubles started before announcing she was moving to New York with a hedge fund manager she'd met at a party. "You're a good guy, Trevor," she'd said, not meeting his eyes. "But I'm not cut out for the struggling artist lifestyle. I need someone established." She'd taken the diamond bracelet he'd bought her and never looked back. Trevor had been hurt, then angry, then finally just numb. She'd never cared about him. She'd cared about his money, his status, his ability to buy her expensive things. Now that those were gone, so was she. The divorce papers from Naomi had arrived 2 weeks ago. He'd been shocked by how reasonable they were. She was asking for almost nothing, just custody of the twins and child support payments that were actually less than what he'd expected. She'd even agreed to let him keep most of their marital assets, not that there were many. His lawyer had advised him to sign immediately. "This is the best deal you're going to get. Take it and move on." But Trevor's pride had balked. How could Naomi just walk away? How could she be fine without him? Where was she even living? He'd driven by their old apartment last week and found someone else living there. He'd called the library where she worked and been told she no longer worked there. It was like she'd vanished into thin air. He'd hired a private investigator, spending money he didn't have to track her down. The investigator had come back with almost nothing. "She's living somewhere in the city, but I can't pin down an exact location. She's using different credit cards, ones I can't trace. It's like she doesn't want to be found." Trevor had been furious. What was she hiding? How could a librarian afford to hide so thoroughly? Now, sitting in his soon-to-be former office, Trevor finally signed the divorce papers. What choice did he have? He needed to cut his losses, start over somehow. He called the number for Naomi's lawyer, Mr. Patterson. "This is Trevor Anderson. I'm ready to sign the divorce agreement. Can we set up a meeting?" "Certainly, Mr. Anderson. How about tomorrow at 10 a.m.? The next morning, Trevor arrived at the law office in his best suit, which was looking worn after months of wear without replacement. The building was impressive, more impressive than he remembered. How had Naomi afforded this lawyer? Mr. Patterson's secretary led him to a conference room. "Mr. Patterson will be with you shortly." Trevor waited, bouncing his leg nervously. The room was elegant, with artwork on the walls that looked original and expensive. Everything about this place screamed money and power. Mr. Patterson entered, followed by another lawyer. "Mr. Anderson, thank you for coming. This is my colleague, Ms. Walsh. Let's get this finalized, shall we?" They went through the papers methodically. Trevor signed where indicated, feeling a strange mixture of relief and resentment. 10 years of marriage reduced to a stack of legal documents. "That's everything," Mr. Patterson said finally, gathering the papers. "The judge will sign off within a few days and your divorce will be final. Do you have any questions?" "Yeah, I have a question," Trevor said, unable to help himself. "Where is Naomi? How is she affording you? What's going on?" Mr. Patterson's expression didn't change. "My client's financial situation is not your concern, Mr. Anderson. She's moved on with her life. I suggest you do the same." "Moved on?" "She disappeared. She took my kids and vanished. Don't I have a right to know where they are?" "You have visitation rights as outlined in the custody agreement," Ms. Walsh said coolly, "which you haven't exercised once in the 4 months since you and Ms. Harrison separated. Your children are safe, happy, and well cared for. That's all you need to know." Trevor stood up abruptly. "This is garbage. You're all hiding something. I'm going to find out what it is." "Mr. Anderson," Mr. Patterson said, his voice taking on a harder edge. A word of advice. Let this go. Move forward with your life. Continuing to pursue Ms. Harrison will only cause you more problems. Trust me on this. Trevor stormed out of the office, taking the elevator down to the lobby. In the parking garage, he sat in his Mercedes, the one asset from his marriage that had any value left, and tried to calm down. Something was wrong. Something didn't add up. Naomi couldn't afford lawyers like that. She couldn't just disappear with the kids and maintain a lifestyle that kept her hidden. Someone was helping her. But who? He pulled out his phone and called his investigator again. I need you to dig deeper. I don't care what it costs. I want to know where my ex-wife is and where her money is coming from. Mr. Anderson, I've already told you she's covered her tracks very well. Whoever is helping her knows what they're doing. Then figure it out. There has to be something. Check her family, her friends, anyone she might have turned to. Her family is just her mother, who died 3 years ago. No siblings, no close relatives that I can find. Her father abandoned them when she was a kid. He's probably dead or completely out of the picture. Trevor paused. Her father. Did you actually verify he's dead? No actually. I assumed based on the timeline. Let me look into that. Do it. And let me know what you find. Trevor drove aimlessly for a while, trying to piece together the puzzle. Who was Robert Harrison? What had happened to him? Could he somehow be connected to Naomi's sudden disappearance? His phone rang. Richard Coleman, one of his former business contacts. Trevor answered eagerly, hoping for good news. Richard, thanks for calling back. I wanted to talk to you about that contract we discussed last month. That's why I'm calling, Trevor. I need to tell you something and you're not going to like it. Our company has decided not to do business with you anymore. Permanently. What? We've worked together for 5 years. Because you're bad for business, Richard said bluntly. People talk, Trevor. Word gets around. What you did at that Christmas party, letting your girlfriend humiliate your wife and kids, that showed everyone exactly what kind of man you are. That was months ago. Was a mistake. I've apologized. Have you? Have you apologized to your children? Have you even seen them since that night? Trevor was silent. The truth was he hadn't tried very hard to see Isaiah and Zara. He told himself he was too busy dealing with his business crisis. But really he just didn't know what to say to them. That's what I thought, Richard said. Listen, Trevor, you're toxic right now. Every major player in this industry knows what you did. Some of us had business partners at that party who witnessed it. And let me tell you, when someone treats their own family like that, nobody wants to risk doing business with them. Who were these business partners? I didn't see anyone I knew there. That's because you weren't paying attention. You were too busy parading around with your mistress. Mr. Phillips was there from Sterling Investments. He's the one who told everyone what happened. He found it disgusting. Trevor's blood ran cold. Mr. Phillips. The older gentleman who'd spoken up when Brittany was mocking Naomi and the kids. He'd seemed disapproving, but Trevor had written him off as some old-fashioned nobody. Sterling Investments, Trevor repeated slowly. They're one of the biggest investment firms in the country. Yeah, and Mr. Phillips personally convinced 6 major companies to drop you as a vendor. You didn't just burn bridges, Trevor. You torched the entire network. Richard hung up. Trevor sat in his car, feeling like the walls were closing in. Mr. Phillips. Sterling Investments. 6 major companies. This wasn't just bad luck or market fluctuations. This was targeted. This was intentional. Someone was systematically destroying his business. Someone had taken that one terrible night at the Christmas party and turned it into ammunition to ruin his entire life. But who had that kind of power? Who cared enough about Naomi to go to war for her? Trevor's investigator called back that afternoon. I found something interesting about Robert Harrison, Naomi's father. He didn't just abandon them. He became extremely successful. Built a tech empire, actually. But here's the weird part, he died about 4 months ago. Right around the time Naomi disappeared. 4 months ago. Right after the Christmas party. Right when everything in Trevor's life started falling apart. Are you saying Naomi inherited money from him? Trevor asked, his mind racing. I'm saying it's possible. But here's where it gets strange. Robert Harrison operated through dozens of shell companies. His wealth was spread across so many different entities that it's almost impossible to trace. I can't verify if Naomi inherited anything or how much. His estate is completely sealed. Can you find out? I can try, but it'll take time and a lot more money than you've already paid me. Trevor ended the call and sat in silence, pieces clicking into place. Naomi's father had been rich. Really rich. And he died right before Naomi left. She could have inherited money. Maybe a lot of money. Enough to afford expensive lawyers and private investigators of her own to hide her tracks. But even if she had inherited something, that didn't explain why his business was being systematically dismantled. That didn't explain Mr. Phillips and Sterling Investments and all the closed doors. Unless Robert Harrison hadn't just been rich. Unless he'd been powerful. Connected. Someone whose friends and business partners would look out for his daughter even after his death. Trevor tried to search for information about Robert Harrison online, but he found almost nothing. A few mentions in tech industry articles, always buried in the fine print. No photos, no interviews, no public presence at all. The man had been a ghost. And now his daughter was disappearing just as thoroughly. Trevor's phone buzzed with another notification. An email from his accountant. Need to discuss your financial situation urgently. You're 3 months behind on office rent and the landlord is threatening legal action. Everything was falling apart. His business, his reputation, his finances. And somewhere out there, Naomi was living her life taking care of their children, completely beyond his reach. For the first time since the Christmas party, Trevor felt real fear. Not worry or stress, but actual gut-churning fear. He'd underestimated Naomi. He'd thought she was weak, dependent, someone he could dismiss and discard. He'd been so wrong. 3 weeks later, Trevor stood in line at the grocery store, counting the bills in his wallet to make sure he had enough for milk and bread. He'd moved into a studio apartment across town, sold his Mercedes, and was working as a freelance consultant for barely enough to cover expenses. Rock bottom felt like a cold concrete floor with no way back up. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Trevor almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Trevor Anderson? A woman's voice asked. Yeah, who's this? My name is Catherine Mills. I'm a journalist working on a story about business ethics in the tech industry. I'd like to talk to you about your former wife, Naomi Harrison. Trevor nearly dropped his phone. What about her? I think we should meet in person. Are you available this afternoon? They met at a coffee shop an hour later. Catherine was in her 40s, professional-looking with a recorder and notebook in front of her. She got right to the point. I've been investigating Harrison Technologies and its new CEO, Naomi Harrison. Apparently, she inherited the company from her father 4 months ago. She's making waves in the industry, implementing progressive policies, launching charitable foundations. Everyone seems impressed. Wait, she's running Harrison Technologies? Trevor interrupted. As in, the Harrison Technologies? The multi-billion-dollar company. Try multi-trillion-dollar empire, Catherine corrected. Robert Harrison was one of the wealthiest people in the world. He just kept it quiet. And now his daughter owns everything. Which brings me to you. You're her ex-husband. You were married for 10 years. You must have insights into her character, her background. Trevor's mind reeled. Trillion. With A.T., Naomi had inherited trillions of dollars. While he was scraping together change for groceries, his ex-wife was running an empire worth more than most countries. I don't understand, he said weakly. She never said anything. Her father abandoned her when she was a kid. She barely remembered him. Apparently he stayed away but kept track of her. Left her everything when he died. Catherine leaned forward. Here's what I'm trying to figure out. Why did you divorce? What was your relationship like? Because from what I'm hearing, you were still married when she inherited all this money. Yet the divorce papers show she gave you almost nothing. That suggests either incredible generosity on her part or something else entirely. Something else, Trevor admitted, the words bitter. We had problems. I made mistakes. What kind of mistakes? Trevor looked at Catherine's recorder, at her expectant expression. He could tell her everything. Paint himself as the victim, claim Naomi had changed after getting the money, that she'd abandoned him unfairly. He could probably get sympathy, maybe even a settlement if he sued for a portion of the inheritance. But as he opened his mouth to speak, he remembered that night at the Christmas party. The look on Isaiah's face when Brittany mocked his clothes. The tears in Zara's eyes. The way Naomi had tried to shield them while Trevor did nothing. I had an affair, he said quietly. I brought my girlfriend to a company Christmas party and let her humiliate my wife and children in public. Then I acted surprised when Naomi left me. That's the story. That's what kind of man I am. Catherine's expression shifted. And Naomi didn't know about the inheritance at that point? She found out right after she left me. Timing was just coincidence, I think. Or maybe fate. But she didn't leave me because of money. She left me because I'm a terrible person who treated her and our kids like garbage. That's remarkably honest, Mr. Anderson. Yeah, well, honesty is about all I have left. Trevor stood up. Are we done here? Actually, I have one more question. If you could talk to Naomi now, what would you say? Trevor thought about that. What would he say? Sorry seemed inadequate. Explaining that he hadn't understood what he had until he lost it seemed pathetic. Begging for another chance felt insulting to everything she'd endured. I tell her I hope she's happy, he said finally. I hope she gives our kids the life I couldn't. And I hope she never thinks about me again, because I don't deserve even that much of her attention. He walked out of the coffee shop, leaving Catherine staring after him with a thoughtful expression. That evening, Trevor did something he should have done months ago. He called Mr. Patterson's office and asked for information about seeing his children. The secretary put him through to Ms. Walsh. Mr. Anderson, I'm surprised to hear from you. Are you finally ready to exercise your visitation rights? I am. I know I don't deserve it, but I'd like to see Isaiah and Zara. If they'll see me, I'll convey your request to Ms. Harrison. She'll decide whether it's in the children's best interests. Given that you've made no effort to contact them in nearly 5 months, I imagine she'll want to discuss this with them first. I understand. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her she was right about everything. 3 days later, Trevor received a call from a number he didn't recognize. When he answered, he heard Naomi's voice for the first time since that awful night. Hello, Trevor. She sounded different. Confident. Strong. Nothing like the uncertain woman he'd been married to. Naomi. Thank you for calling. I wanted to talk about seeing the kids. I spoke with Isaiah and Zara. They're willing to meet with you, but only in a supervised setting. We'll meet at a family counselor's office. 1 hour. If it goes well, we can discuss regular visitation. Thank you. That's more than fair. Naomi, I need to say, I know you inherited money from your father. I know you're running his company. And I need you to know I'm not going to cause problems. I'm not going to try to get any of it. I don't deserve anything from you. There was a long pause. You finally figured it out. Everyone figured it out. It's all over the tech news. People are talking about the mysterious new CEO who came out of nowhere. I should have known it was you. I should have known you were capable of so much more than I ever gave you credit for. You should have known a lot of things, Trevor. You should have known your children deserved respect. You should have known your wife deserved loyalty. You should have known that status and money don't make someone valuable, character does. You're right. You're right about everything. I was a terrible husband and a worse father. I can't fix that. But I'd like to try to be better. For Isaiah and Zara, not for me. Another pause. The appointment is Thursday at 3 p.m. I'll text you the address. Don't be late. And Trevor? If you hurt them again, if you disappoint them or let them down, you won't get another chance. This is it. Do you understand? I understand. Thank you, Naomi. She ended the call. Trevor sat on his lumpy studio apartment couch and cried for the first time since his business collapsed. Not for his money or his status or his lost life, but for the family he'd destroyed through his own selfishness and pride. Thursday came. Trevor arrived 15 minutes early at the counselor's office, wearing the one decent shirt he still owned. He was nervous, more nervous than he'd been for any business meeting in his life. The door opened and Naomi walked in with Isaiah and Zara. Trevor's breath caught. The twins had grown. They looked healthy, happy, confident. They were dressed in nice clothes, not the homemade outfits Naomi used to sew, but quality pieces that fit properly and looked expensive. And Naomi. She looked stunning. Her natural hair was beautifully styled. She wore a green dress that probably cost more than Trevor's rent. She had the bearing of someone used to power and respect. Hi, Dad, Isaiah said tentatively. Hi, buddy. Hi, Zara. You both look great. They sat down with the counselor, a kind woman named Dr. Roberts. She facilitated the conversation, making sure everyone got to speak and be heard. How have you been? Trevor asked the twins. Good, Zara said. We live in a really big house now. I take ballet lessons. And I'm learning piano, Isaiah added. I can play 5 songs already. That's amazing. I'd love to hear you play sometime if that's okay. They talked for the full hour. The twins were guarded at first but gradually warmed up. They told him about their new school, their friends, their hobbies. They didn't mention the Christmas party, but it hung in the air like a ghost. As the session ended, Dr. Roberts suggested weekly visits, supervised at first. Naomi agreed with the caveat that if Trevor missed appointments or showed up intoxicated, he'd lose privileges immediately. I won't miss any appointments, Trevor promised. And I'm sober. I can take drug tests if you want. That won't be necessary, Naomi said coolly. Just be the father they deserve. Walking to his car afterward, Trevor felt lighter somehow. Seeing his kids had reminded him what really mattered. He'd lost everything else, but maybe, just maybe, he could salvage this one relationship. He pulled out his phone and looked at the news article about Naomi that had come out that morning. Harrison Technologies CEO announces billion-dollar initiative to support single mothers. The photo showed her standing in front of a podium, looking powerful and purposeful. This was who she'd always been underneath, Trevor realized. Strong, capable, generous. He'd just been too blind to see it. He'd kept her small because it made him feel big. Now she was showing the world what she could do. And Trevor was watching from the sidelines, a cautionary tale about a man who'd had everything and thrown it away for nothing. He drove back to his studio apartment and started drafting an email to his children. Nothing dramatic, just a simple message. I love you both. I'm sorry I wasn't a better dad. I'm going to try to do better. Love, Dad. It wasn't much. But it was honest. And honesty was the only thing Trevor had left to give. 6 months after the Christmas party, Naomi sat in her office at Harrison Technologies, reviewing applications for the company's new scholarship program. The sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the framed photos of Isaiah and Zara on her desk. Her assistant knocked. Ms. Harrison, Mr. Phillips from Sterling Investments is here for your lunch meeting. Naomi stood, smoothing her blue suit. Send him in. George Phillips entered, the same distinguished gentleman who'd witnessed the Christmas party disaster. He'd become one of Naomi's most trusted advisors since she'd taken over her father's company. Today, however, his expression was unusually serious. George, good to see you. What's wrong? I need to tell you something, Naomi. Something I should have told you months ago. He settled into the chair across from her desk. It's about that Christmas party. About Trevor and why everything fell apart for him so quickly. Naomi's pulse quickened. What about it? I wasn't just a random guest that night. I was there representing Sterling Investments, which had been considering a major partnership with Trevor's company. We'd been in negotiations for months. That party was supposed to be a casual meet and greet before finalizing the deal. I didn't know that. No one did. Trevor had no idea I was there or what I represented. When I saw how he treated you and your children, how he let that woman mock them while he laughed, I made some calls. I pulled our investment offer. But more than that, I reached out to other firms we work with and told them what I'd witnessed. I wanted to make sure people knew what kind of man Trevor Anderson really was. Naomi sat back, processing this information. You destroyed his business. I didn't destroy it. He destroyed it the moment he chose cruelty over character. I just made sure the right people knew about it. Why are you telling me this now? George pulled an old photograph from his briefcase and slid it across the desk. It showed 2 men in their 20s, arms around each other's shoulders, laughing at something off camera. One was clearly George. The other looked familiar. That's my father, Naomi whispered, recognizing Robert Harrison's younger face. Your father was my best friend. We went to college together, built our first businesses together. When his marriage to your mother fell apart and he decided to stay away from you, I was the only person he confided in. I watched him love you from a distance for 30 years. I watched it break his heart every single day. Tears pricked Naomi's eyes. He never said anything to me. Even in his letters, he never mentioned you. He wanted you to form your own relationships, make your own connections. But he asked me to watch over you after he was gone. To make sure you were safe and supported as you learned to navigate your new life. George's expression hardened. When I saw how Trevor treated you that night, I didn't just see a wife being disrespected. I saw my best friend's daughter being humiliated. And I decided Trevor Anderson needed to learn a lesson about consequences. You did this for my father. I did it for you, George corrected gently. Robert asked me to protect you. That's what I was doing. Making sure the man who hurt you faced appropriate consequences for his actions. Naomi stood and walked to the window, looking out over the city. Trevor thinks his business failed because of bad luck and market forces. He has no idea. He knows now. I made sure word got around about why we pulled our investment, why other firms followed suit. The business community understands exactly what happened. Trevor's reputation is ruined not because I spread lies, but because I told the truth about his character. And the Christmas party itself? You were there because of my father? Not directly. The partnership with Trevor's company was legitimate business. But after your father passed and I learned you were Trevor's wife, I made sure to attend that party personally. I wanted to see what kind of man had married Robert Harrison's daughter. George's jaw tightened. What I saw disgusted me. There were other people there that night, Naomi said slowly. Other business partners you mentioned. They all knew who I was. Not at the party. But I made sure they learned afterward. I sent a memo to every major investment firm and corporate partner in our network. I explained that Trevor Anderson had publicly humiliated his wife and children, that he'd brought his mistress to a professional event, that he'd shown a complete lack of judgment and character. Within a week, Trevor was radioactive. No one wanted to be associated with him. Naomi turned back to George. You could have told me this months ago. I wanted you to find your strength first. I wanted you to build your confidence, learn the business, establish yourself. If I told you right away that someone else had fought your battles for you, it might have undermined that growth. You needed to believe in your own power. And now you're thriving. You're a brilliant CEO, a devoted mother, and a force to be reckoned with in this industry. You don't need my protection anymore, but you have my friendship and loyalty. Just like your father did. Naomi sat back down, feeling overwhelmed. I don't know whether to thank you or be angry that you interfered in my life without telling me. Be whatever you need to be. I can handle it. George smiled slightly. Your father always said you had a fierce spirit. I'm glad to see he was right. They spent the next hour talking about Robert Harrison, about the friendship he'd shared with George, about the business empire he'd built and the plans he'd made for Naomi's future. George shared stories Naomi had never heard, filling in pieces of her father's life that the journals hadn't covered. He was planning to reach out to you a week before his heart attack, George said. He'd finally worked up the courage to break his promise to your mother. He said 30 years was long enough. He wanted to know you, to meet his grandchildren, to be part of your life. I wish he had, Naomi said softly. I wish I'd gotten that chance. He knew the risks. He knew you might reject him, might be angry about the abandonment. But he was ready to face that. He just ran out of time. After George left, Naomi sat alone in her office, staring at the photograph of her father and his best friend. Two young men with their whole lives ahead of them, building dreams that would eventually become one of the largest fortunes in the world. Her father had loved her. He'd protected her even in death, making sure his best friend watched over her. And when Trevor had hurt her, that protection had manifested in Trevor's business collapse. Part of Naomi felt vindicated. Trevor had faced real consequences for his actions. He'd lost everything, just like she'd once thought she had nothing. The universe had balanced the scales. But another part of her felt sad. Not for Trevor, but for the waste of it all. The years she'd spent with a man who didn't value her. The time her father had spent loving her from a distance. The relationships that could have been but never were. That evening, Naomi told the twins about George and their grandfather's friendship. They listened with wide eyes, asking questions about the grandfather they'd never known. He sounds nice, Zara said. I wish we could have met him. Me too, baby. But he loved you both very much. He built that playground in our backyard thinking about you. He left us this life thinking about what would make you happy. Do you think he'd be proud of us? Isaiah asked. Naomi pulled them both close. I think he'd be proud of how kind you are, how smart you are, how you treat people with respect. That's what really mattered to him. Not money or success, but character. Later, alone in her room, Naomi opened her father's journal to the last entry again. She'd read it dozens of times, but tonight the words hit differently. Promise me you'll be happy. Promise me you'll live fully and love deeply and never let anyone make you feel small again. She'd done that. She'd built a life filled with purpose and meaning. She'd protected her children and given them opportunities. She'd used her resources to help others who were struggling the way she once had. But the part about loving deeply, she hadn't done that yet. She'd been so focused on survival, on building her new life, on being strong for her children, that she hadn't let anyone close. She'd built walls to protect herself, and those walls were getting harder to climb over. Maybe it was time to try. Maybe she could have it all. The career, the family, and yes, someone to share it with. Someone who saw her for who she really was and loved her anyway. Naomi made a decision. She would open herself up to possibilities. She would stop hiding behind her hurt and her anger. She would live fully just like her father had asked. The revenge she'd wanted was complete. Trevor had faced consequences. Her life was better than she'd ever imagined. Now it was time to move forward completely, to embrace not just success but happiness. Real, genuine, lasting happiness. 8 months after the Christmas party that had changed everything, Naomi stood on the terrace of her mansion, watching the sun set over the gardens. Isaiah and Zara played on the swings, their laughter carrying across the manicured lawn. A garden party was in full swing, celebrating the launch of the Harrison Foundation for Single Mothers, Naomi's biggest charitable project yet. "Beautiful evening," a voice said beside her. Naomi turned to see Jerome Collins, the architect who designed the foundation's new headquarters. They'd met 3 months ago during the planning phase, and their professional relationship had slowly evolved into something more personal. Jerome was tall, with warm brown eyes and an easy smile. He'd grown up working class, put himself through architecture school, and built a successful firm through talent and determination. When they'd first met, he'd had no idea about Naomi's wealth. He'd been impressed by her ideas, her passion for helping others, her intelligence. Finding out she was a billionaire several dates in had shocked him, but it hadn't changed how he treated her. He still opened doors, still insisted on paying for their coffee, still looked at her like she was the most interesting person in the room. "It really is," Naomi agreed, smiling at him. "Thank you for being here. Wouldn't miss it. This foundation is going to change lives, Naomi. Your father would be so proud." They talked extensively about her father, about the inheritance, about the journey that had brought her to this point. Jerome had listened without judgment, offering support and understanding. "Miss Harrison?" Patricia approached with her tablet. "The caterers need to know when you'd like to make the speech." "In about 20 minutes. Let everyone eat first." As Patricia walked away, Jerome studied Naomi's expression. "Nervous?" "A little. Public speaking still makes me anxious." "You'll be great. You always are." He hesitated, then added, "I have something to ask you. After the party, would you like to go to dinner? Just the two of us. Somewhere quiet." Naomi's heart skipped. She and Jerome had been dancing around their feelings for weeks now, going on casual dates, spending time together with the twins, building something slow and real. But neither had defined what they were to each other. "I'd like that," she said softly. The party continued around them. Business partners mingled with community leaders. Staff from Harrison Technologies chatted with local politicians. The mayor gave a short speech praising Naomi's commitment to helping families in need. When it was time for her own speech, Naomi stood at the microphone, looking out at the gathered crowd. These were people who respected her, valued her, saw her as someone worth listening to. A year ago, she couldn't have imagined standing here like this. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice steady. "A year ago, I was a different person living a different life. I thought I knew what I wanted, what I deserved. I thought my circumstances defined my worth. I was wrong about a lot of things." She paused, finding Isaiah and Zara in the crowd. They waved at her, proud smiles on their faces. "My father, Robert Harrison, spent 30 years building an empire. But the real legacy he left wasn't money or companies or assets. It was the belief that everyone deserves dignity, opportunity, and hope. He believed that we have a responsibility to help those who are struggling, not because it makes us look good, but because it's the right thing to do. The Harrison Foundation for Single Mothers exists because I was once a struggling mother myself. I know what it's like to count pennies for groceries, to make clothes by hand because you can't afford to buy them, to lie awake at night wondering how you'll keep a roof over your children's heads. I know what it feels like to be invisible, dismissed, treated as less than by people who should love and protect you." The crowd was silent, listening intently. Naomi saw George Phillips near the front, nodding encouragingly. "This foundation will provide financial assistance, job training, childcare support, and housing help to single mothers who are working hard but need a hand up. We'll offer counseling services, legal aid, and educational programs. We'll create a community where women support each other instead of judging each other. Where children have the resources they need to thrive regardless of their family structure. I can't change the past. I can't give back the years I spent struggling or help my mother who worked herself to exhaustion trying to provide for me. But I can make sure other women and children don't face those same struggles alone. That's what my father wanted. That's what this foundation will do." She finished to enthusiastic applause. People came up afterward to congratulate her, to share their own stories, to thank her for creating something meaningful. Naomi spoke with everyone, made connections, built relationships. As the sun fully set and the party wound down, Naomi found herself alone in the library with Jerome. He'd brought 2 glasses of wine and was looking at the bookshelves with obvious appreciation. "This is an incredible room," he said. "These are all first editions, aren't they?" "Most of them. My father was a collector. I've added a few of my own." Jerome turned to her, his expression serious. "I need to be honest with you about something. When I first met you, I had no idea who you were. I just saw this brilliant, passionate woman with ideas about creating something beautiful and functional. Then I found out about the money, about your father, about everything you've been through. And for about 5 seconds I wondered if I was out of my league. And after 5 seconds? Naomi asked, her heart racing. After 5 seconds I realized none of that matters. The money, the status, the empire, that's not who you are. You're a woman who makes her kids lunch every morning even though you have a chef. You're someone who knows the names of every staff member and asks about their families. You're someone who turned pain into purpose and used your resources to help others instead of just helping yourself. He stepped closer. I'm falling in love with you, Naomi. Not with your money or your position, but with you. The real you. And I wanted you to know that before things go any further. Naomi felt tears prick her eyes, but they were happy tears. I'm falling in love with you too. You see me, Jerome. Not the CEO or the heiress, but me. The woman who still gets nervous before meetings, who sings off-key in the shower, who cries during children's movies. That's what I've been looking for. Someone who sees all of me and stays anyway. Jerome kissed her then, gentle and sweet. When they pulled apart, Naomi was smiling wider than she had in months. The twins really like you, she said. Isaiah told me yesterday that you're cool. From an 8-year-old, that's high praise. I really like them too. They're amazing kids, Naomi. You've done an incredible job raising them. They're resilient. They've been through a lot, but they came out stronger. She paused, then added, Trevor has been seeing them regularly. Supervised visits at first, but the therapist says he can move to unsupervised soon. He's trying to be better. How do you feel about that? I'm glad he's making an effort. The kids need a father, even an imperfect one. But I don't feel anything for him anymore. No anger, no resentment, nothing. He's just someone I used to know who's learning to be a better person. I hope he succeeds for Isaiah and Zara's sake. They talked for another hour, making plans for the future, sharing dreams and hopes. Jerome wanted to expand his firm, to focus on sustainable architecture that helped communities. Naomi wanted to expand the foundation globally, to help families in developing countries. They talked about traveling together, about introducing Jerome to the twins more formally, about building something real and lasting. Later, after Jerome left and the twins were asleep, Naomi sat in her father's library, reading his journals one more time. She'd read them cover to cover at least a dozen times, but they still brought her comfort. I did it, Dad, she whispered to the empty room. I built the life you wanted for me. I'm happy. The kids are happy. We're safe and loved and thriving. I hope wherever you are, you can see that. I hope you know it wasn't for nothing. She closed the journal and looked around the beautiful library, at the life she'd built from the ashes of her old one. She'd wanted revenge once, wanted to make Trevor pay for hurting her and their children. But she'd learned that living well truly was the best response. Trevor's punishment had come from his own actions, not from anything she'd done. She'd focused on building instead of destroying, on healing instead of hurting. And in the process, she'd become the woman her father had always believed she could be. A knock on the library door made her look up. Isaiah stood there in his pajamas, holding a book. Mama? Can you read to me? I can't sleep. Of course, baby. Come here. Isaiah climbed onto the couch beside her, snuggling close. Naomi opened the book and began to read, her voice soft and soothing. This was everything. This moment, this child, this life they'd built together. All the money in the world couldn't buy what really mattered. Love, safety, family, peace. Zara appeared in the doorway a few minutes later, not wanting to miss out. She curled up on Naomi's other side, and Naomi adjusted to hold them both, continuing the story. They fell asleep like that, the three of them together on the library couch, surrounded by books and possibility and love. When Patricia found them an hour later, she simply draped a blanket over them and turned off the light, leaving the family to sleep in peace. Outside, the stars shone over the mansion and the gardens and the city beyond. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new moments to build on everything Naomi had created. But tonight this was enough. This was everything. This was home.